Yeah.
So just hold on, buddy. I'm just bringing that up. Hopefully we're going to. And you also will bring the chat up too, Simon.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. I'm just. Oh, there we are.
Yeah, that's a good
there we are. Right. Let's just see that. Wizardly. Live chat. There we are.
How's the weather in the UK?
Well, actually, hey, it's Jimmy. Morning, Jimmy T. How you doing?
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, Jimmy. Yeah. The weather here's, but we've had a beautiful weekend. We have a fantastic kind of 23 degrees, sunny. Shorts, t-shirts weather.
Really?
It's been absolutely beautiful. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. A week ago we were down. It was pretty cold on sort of, but I think we've got a sort of high pressure over the North Sea that's making the weather really nice. Yeah, really nice.
We've had a drought in the Waikato for about 4 months, and it's been pretty tough, Simon, for the farmers.
Yeah,
We've had
got
some
water
rain over
shortages
the last
and
couple
stuff.
of days, so they're pretty happy.
I bet they are. Yeah. Do you get into kind of water shortage? Emergency measures of not, like not having water and stuff, or you're okay?
No. Like they'll put here in New Zealand, spraying your gardens. That's a big thing. So they'll put you on rotations for hosing your garden and stuff like that, but nothing that bad.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning, John Smith. We have a John Smith in the house. Morning, John. Did I eat any goats?
I think I might know who John Smith is.
Do you know who John Smith is? Oh, is that a well-known New Zealand real estate realtor or whatever they?
Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Jimmy T, and nice to see you, John Smith.
You want to stop messing about, John? Get in here.
Well, that's right. But I suppose what we should do, though, Simon, for people watching and anyone that's going to go back and watch the replay of the show, so we have to do a shout out to Carl.
We do have to go do a shout out to Carl. Yes.
Yeah. You have to do a shout out for Carl. The Rolling Stones show hasn't been stopped. It's been put on the back burner because of Carl's work commitments. So this has given Simon and I an opportunity for us to get together and have a chat about all things Eric Clapton.
Yes, the mighty Eric Clapton. There from beginning till end, pretty much.
Who incidentally is playing at the Budokan the last couple of days.
Yeah, that's right. He's doing a tour, isn't he? This year he's playing the Albert Hall, I think, so sometime soon as well. Yes, doing his normal. I think every couple of years does a few nights at the Albert Hall to keep him.
How old is he, Simon? 70, 76?
75, 74.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yo, Carl. That's right, Jimmy T.
No,
your John Smith is silent. He's been busted.
Yeah, we know who you are. We have your IP address.
Yeah. I suppose for me, Simon,
when did you first come across the mighty Eric?
Well, I suppose like a lot of us, it's these stages where you discover a musician and then you rediscover them again and rediscover. So for me, the first time I seriously heard of Eric Clapton was 1981 when the album
what would have been 81? Yeah, what's it?
Oh gosh!
Just one night. Was that out then?
No,
the live one.
Bloody hell! We've had technical issues, guys. We should have been on here 45 minutes ago. So
now we've got brain issues. That's much more long term.
now I've got a brain issue. Hold on, we've got plenty of time anyway.
Yeah, we're good.
You're on holiday and what's the album that came out in 1981?
August?
No, Before that,
that's later.
Just One Night.
Just One. Oh, it was Just One Night. Yeah, yeah.
Hold on. Is it Just One Night? The one with the purple cover?
That's the live album, isn't it? Just One Night.
No, it's not that.
No, not that one.
Oh, hold on.
Eric,
It's important that we get this.
Hold on.
So much for being Clapton nut.
yeah. There's been Clapton, and then there's knowing the order in which his albums came out, which nobody knows.
It's got Floating Bridge anyway. It's got that album on it.
It's got Floating Bridge. Don't think he's ever had a floating bridge, has he?
Another Ticket.
Another Ticket.
Another Ticket.
Oh, right.
That album there, Simon. Another Ticket.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so that album came out in 1980, 1981, and that album's considered a flop apparently by a lot of journalists, music reporters. But anyway, that album came out. I would have been probably first year of high school, maybe 13 or 14, and I remember again going to my uncle's place and hearing that album. He'd just bought it on the Friday night, and it was Saturday. And I was listening to the songs, Rita May and some other songs on that album. Anyway,
Floating Bridge, Catch Me If You Can.
Catch Me If You Can.
Blow Wind Blow, yeah. Black Rose, Something Special.
Yeah, something special. Yeah. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, this was different. This was different, and I thought it was pretty cool because I'd heard of Eric Clapton being in Cream, because everyone knows Sunshine of Your Love, everyone knows that riff. So I listened to him for about 3 or 4 weeks and thought, yeah, that was pretty cool. But the big push for me, Simon, was Journeyman. When Journeyman came out in 88.
Phil Collins.
That was the album that
filtered, didn't it?
Pushed me into at least
interesting.
Going back and rediscovering everything that he had done in the past.
Okay. I was going to say, because that album's not representative of his early stuff really at all, is it? It's kind of that kind of. Didn't Phil Collins produce it? Phil Collins, I'm sure he played on it as well.
Well, he played on it, but it had like Pretending and Bad Love, and it was you got to remember, Pretending and Bad Love were bloody radio songs, Simon.
Yeah, hits. Yeah.
It was pop music.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so you're much later than me. See, for me, because I'm old, and so interestingly, I was having a look, but I mean, Eric Clapton for me has always been there. I mean, I remember buying 461 Ocean Boulevard, which is 71, 72. That's when I started buying records. Certainly had that, and kind of obviously knew of Layla and Sunshine of Your Love and some Cream stuff. I had an uncle who's about 10 years older than me. In fact, he used to work for Jack Bruce in later life. But I remember he introduced me, so I knew quite a lot of Cream stuff, live in the Albert Hall and things. Although I never particularly bought them at the time. But so he was always part of it. And because I used to read the English music press, so New Musical Express, Sounds, Melody Maker, were the 3 great triumvirate music papers. Weekly newspapers. Really, Thursday was, you'd race up to the newsagents to get your copy of whatever, the NME or something, And often, obviously, Clapton would be on the front cover. I mean, he did the Rainbow gig in 71, organised by Pete Townsend and all that. So he'd always been there, and I'd always known his music, because and being in the mix with Jimi Hendrix and the Led Zeppelin and all those kind of 60s blues greats. And I was looking back, because I didn't see him until 1980, and I couldn't work out why. I thought, that's odd. And in fact, I went back and looked at his tour things, and he never came to Bristol. He came to Bristol in 1970 when I was too young to go, and then not until 1980. which is so that 10 years when I went to loads and loads of gigs and stuff like that, he never came to Bristol. Toured a lot elsewhere. So I never saw him. So really for me, probably 461 Ocean Boulevard is my, what I had as a kind of bought album. But I already knew about him, what he'd done in the past, very clearly, because obviously British musician, and I'm, 1971, 72 is only, 4 or 5 years away from Cream. So not very long, really, so in that sense, although it didn't feel like it then, kind of fresh in the memory for us. And as I say, he used to appear in the music press regularly and things, what he was doing.
What I particularly like about Clapton, Simon, for me over the years is that you go through the eras of discovering him. Like I'll never forget, buying Disraeli Gears and listening to that whole album of Disraeli Gears, thinking, holy crap, what is this? And then a few years later, not listening to Derek and the Dominoes because we knew Layla, and let's face it, if we're honest, Layla is a song that you trying to avoid sometimes.
It transcends, doesn't it? It's an absolute transcendent song. Do you know why Disraeli Gears is called Disraeli Gears?
Because Ginger couldn't pronounce derailleurs.
That's right. Yeah, Disraeli Gears. That's what I love, is that sort of thing. Disraeli Gears. Pun on that. Yeah.
That she's under here.
It's brilliant. That fantastic.
Yeah. And then anyway, taking the plunge and getting hold of Layla and other assorted love songs, and then listening to that album, it's like mind blowing, Simon.
Yeah. Apparently, when that first came out, they put stickers on it saying "Derek is Eric."
Yeah. Ahmet was a little bit upset.
Wonderful, isn't it? That's selling. Wonderful. That is. Derek is Eric.
He thought he was going to make $1 million overnight on that album, didn't he? But he wasn't quite making it.
Not quite, no. Hey, Sonia, how you doing? Hope you're well.
And another period too is a few years later, listening to the Blues Breakers album, thinking,
Beano album, yeah. Where did that come from?
So like a lot of things, it takes a while to digest, that legacy or that musical history that he has, and to put that into context as a fan, as an individual fan, gives us an opportunity now where I can spend some time with you talking about these facets of his development over how many years? 50 years?
50 years, yeah. The interesting bit is, you come in the middle, don't you? So you come in the middle and then you kind of work your way forwards and backwards. Depending on, or certainly go backwards and get. I mean, it's interesting. For me, it's all about the timeline. What is the timeline of these things, and then what are the changes, and then what are the bits. Whereas. And you come in the middle, yes, and you have to understand the timeline when things came out, what they did, and kind of the influence of them as well. Because I think obviously the Beano album is an immensely influential record in many ways.
It's phenomenal. It's every year that goes by, you read or hear about some musician that you didn't think would have a connection back to that album, and they talk about it. They say, "Wow, this album was fundamental to them as a guitar player."
Yeah. Yes, really interesting that as a and also the sound and everything, what he was doing and all those things is, I think, really interesting, and to see how then other people took that on, said, blimey, with all that, with the Marshall, the JTM 45 and all of that, and the Les Paul, all of a sudden getting a sound that nobody else had.
Pretty brash for a 20-year-old, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or was he 20 or maybe 19?
20, 21, 19, 20, something like that. Yeah, 45, so 60. Yeah, 21, 20, 21. Yeah, that sort of thing. What's yeah. I think, but he's a funny bloke, isn't he? He's got that dichotomy, isn't he, of kind of diffidence and yet kind of arrogance as well. Have a confidence, which you have to have if you're going to be a performer. But it's the two sides of him, isn't it? Absolutely, the two sides of him.
It's it's interesting that you should say that, because one of the first biographies I read from him was this book here called Clapton, Edge of Darkness, by a guy called Christopher Sanford.
Right.
And what blew me away about this guy's book is that he plots very early how Eric wasn't liked by a lot of people when
that's right. Yeah, he was quite aloof and quite sort of even going back to 17, 18. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
When he was a Yardbird, a lot of people thought he was an arrogant cat.
Yeah.
Interesting you call it aloof.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a certain amount of kind of, that thing about that when you turn your back on the audience to play and stuff like that, and we should do, or you do what you do, and regardless almost of the consequences, it amazes me that those early years, band hopping, which is what you'd expect for a 19, 20-year-old, you go from one band to the next, but even if you think about it, even the Blues Breakers, he didn't seem to be that committed to the Blues Breakers. He went off to Greece, didn't he, for 2 months with somebody else, with a guy in one of his older bands, and and he came back and he rejoined and he kind of did a bit more, and then he left to get into Cream. It's like, well, didn't seem very sort of committed to them. just and I that's what I feel about him, is there's kind of a certain aloofness, arrogance, about him, about what he wanted to do. That thing about being a blues purist. I'm leaving the Yardbirds because this pop thing they've given me, For Your Love. I'm not doing that.
Well, I admire him for that, and because he had a clear vision of what he wanted to do, and he certainly wasn't isolated, because Keith Richards and all these other English cats that were discovering the blues at that time were just as determined to make sure that they weren't going to be tinged by commercialism. But I think, getting back to Eric Clapton, how he was aloof, and I agree with you. I don't think there was anything that was nasty about him, but we didn't know that, or a lot of people didn't know why he was like that until later on, when we found out, who his mum was, and that had
and all of that. Yeah, that's him, and yes, and I think that remember, people often mistake shyness and reserve for aloofness and arrogance. As a kind of thing. I remember reading a quote. He said once, "I like the attention, but I don't like the attention."
Yeah.
So that dichotomy of I'm quite a shy person, but actually I really like performing. I'm happy to get up there and do it, but but I'm not that and I think that's all the drink and all of that stuff is about that, isn't it? It's about overcoming that shyness, that reserve, and trying to unlock yourself as a person, as a performer, and kind of trying to work out who you are. And they're not the ways to do it, by the way. But I can see why a 25-year-old bloke, 24-year-old is going to be in that position, to kind of to see what those things are like. And as you say, in his upbringing and all of those things, which is amazing. A bit like John Lennon, isn't it? There's a parallel with John Lennon. John Lennon was brought up by his aunt, wasn't he? Which is very odd.
Yeah. And they make up for any shortfalls. I think that someone in a nuclear family might have in other ways. But I think in a lot of ways too, Simon, I think it gives them a lot of strength too that they tap into. Like Eric Clapton always loved being the loner. He looked at the Beatles when he saw the Beatles together walking around in the nightclub. He was skeptical about them. That they were this four-headed monster. And he always loved being the lone wolf, didn't he?
Yeah. He's skeptical about lots of things, wasn't he, Eric? But yeah, I think he did it. Well, I think it's a combination of things as ever, isn't it? It's he liked being that, but he was also that type of person. He was also the loner, also the guy who was and that was his natural position, in his life, is to be like that.
And
So I think,
and we'll just give him a bit of an overview, guys, in the chat. We're going to be a little bit more focused in ongoing shows, a little bit like what we did with the Rolling Stones. But getting back to his time in Cream, Simon, he was caught between two guys who would physically bash each other.
The great Ginger Baker, Mr. Smiley. Yes. Yeah. Do you know what? Talking of Ginger Baker, just as a complete aside, about 6 months ago, me and my nephew were having there was something about Ginger Baker on, I don't know, some Facebook thing. And me and my nephew, who's 20, Kia, he's not. So he and I were having a bit of. We put something on this Facebook thing, of something, and we got a reply from, I think, Ginger Baker's daughter, completely out of the blue. It's something on my Facebook feed. It said, it was really funny. It's like, really. Fortunately, we hadn't said anything rude, which was good. But we got trolled by, because I think I had a quick read, and I think she does all his, because obviously Ginger's not doing social media. But so and obviously she'd seen our comment, and she replied to it, which was really nice, actually. It was cool. But yes, they were amazingly kind of fiery, vociferous pair, weren't they, Bruce and Baker? And the fiery Scotsman.
Where Eric was getting he'd get physically ill because of the tension, because he was this quietish kind of guy at that stage, caught between obviously two guys that he admired musically and probably had a personal affection for individually. But I think if we've been in that situation ourselves, whether it's in a family or a professional situation, it can be a little bit difficult. But again, what I want to point out, Simon, I think is that he learnt from that and put himself into a position where he was going to have control over bands.
Yeah. But it is interesting, isn't it, that post Cream, he did, his then quest to be in a band rather than be the band leader. Obviously doing stuff with Delaney and Bonnie and kind of just being in the band. And just that thing about, I'm not going to be the guitar virtuoso. I'm just going to play in the band. And that switch that says, it's not going to be all about the long virtuoso solos and stuff like that. It's about the song.
Well, he's very lucky. He's very lucky, isn't he, to have that opportunity to hang out with those Southern cats, because they gave him an opportunity just to relax and just be part of a band.
Yes, which I presume, same thing with Derek and the Dominoes, really. There's a bit more guitar on it, but, a lot of, Dwayne Allman to sort of, and some of those other, as you say, those other Southern guys to take the pressure off, you do it under a pseudonym, Derek and the Dominoes, kind of takes away that kind of frontman image that you have to have. Although interesting, Cream,
but wasn't that
he wasn't the only one who sang.
Wasn't that part of that hippie thing, though, back then, where you
commune type thing,
where you weren't you weren't the main event,
man. Well, I think, I don't know. I think it's I think actually it's more personal to him that he moved away from that kind of very virtuoso kind of Cream type stuff. Moved into more, as you said, into an ensemble thing, and I think that's partly the sort of the fame, the madness, the attention, and just thinking, I don't want to do this. Actually, I prefer just to be in a band for a bit. Because he had Delaney and Bonnie. They supported him, didn't they? And he really liked what they did because it was just like a band thing. Which is why he did a tour with them. Kind of just to get out of the it's Eric Clapton. It's that Clapton is God thing, isn't it? Kind of. If you're 20 years old and people are spraying on walls, Clapton is God. I think that's quite a weird place to be. I could go to a man's head.
Well, he loved it. He loved it in his biography, Simon. He talks about how Carl Rattle and Jim Gordon and Billy, Bobby.
Bobby Kettner,
the organ player.
Yeah.
How they came to Hurtwood, and that's all they did for 3 months. They just took drugs, ate fry ups, and played all day and all night long.
Well done. And the rest of us are wishing we could. Not the drugs bit, but
yeah.
The fry ups and the play all night.
Playing the guitar sounds good to me, Simon.
You're offering fry ups and playing all night. That's what I'm going to be doing May in Italy. Fry ups and playing all day and all night.
Yeah. But he certainly had a lot of luck, though, didn't he? Over the course of his professional career, when people thought, "Jeepers, this is suicide. This is professional suicide. What you're doing."
Do you think people did think it was professional suicide? I'm saying that because obviously we're talking about 461 Ocean Boulevard, which is a completely different sort of album than even Derek and the Dominoes and certainly Cream. Much more of an ensemble piece, not massive solos on it. Very much the song. To me, there was I'm looking back at it, and even then, it was just this is the new Eric Clapton album. He's doing something different. But sure. I think everyone was trying to do something different. That thing about, that artistic growth, that very, that late 60s creativity period, it was just massive. When you saw going from, 66 was very much sort of pop singles and stuff like that. And then 67, 68 albums, 71, the apex of the album generation.
That album's a masterpiece, Simon. You've got Motherless Children.
It's a great record, yeah.
And then you've got Mainland Florida. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You see, but not in the same way as Cream is. So in sort of 4 or 5 years, he's moved from Cream to a different because I can't just do Cream for the rest of my life. If I just do Cream, I could do Cream for 3 records, but that's about it. Then I have to do something else. So then I do Blind Faith, with Stevie Winwood and kind of. And then I do Derek and the Dominoes. And then I do 461 Ocean Boulevard. For me, that's just part of, certainly then, was just part of almost what you'd expect people to do. The new album mustn't sound like the last one kind of syndrome.
Certainly an artist.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Looking to be artistically, stretched, creative, going in different directions. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to do the Cream, massive amounts of big blues solos and all of that. I'm not doing that. I'm going to do much more of an ensemble piece, and you see that a creative growth, a change, as people grow up, they get older, they, things happen, they change. And for me, that fits in with what everybody else was doing, You know, if you take, Led Zeppelin, anybody, any of those guys, what they did on Led Zeppelin 1, they didn't do on Led Zeppelin 4. They certainly didn't do on Led Zeppelin 3. Pink Floyd, anybody, you name them, what they did in 1967, they didn't do in 1971. In a kind of, because they're all, searching for their path and it's alongside new technologies, different ways of recording, all sorts of stuff, in there. In 67, you're on 4 tracks, 8 track if you're lucky, you get to 71, you might be on 24 track,
Sure.
So you can afford to lay things down and you can afford to, do stuff in a different way, overdubs and all sorts of things.
He had a few flops though, Simon.
Inevitably.
When I said, professional suicide, or or certainly putting his professional career in a situation where people are going to look and scratch their heads and perhaps not buy his records. There's one in every crowd, and I'm a Clapton nut. But I'm not going to be a sycophant here, and it's important that you and I be critical, and be honest with our criticism. There's one in every crowd, and back with some horrible albums.
Yeah, I mean, the 80s stuff is not really my thing, August and I never really got thrilled by those. They kind of diverged, whereas I liked is it Just One Night, the live album? I like that. I thought that was really good,
So he does a couple of dud albums, then he comes out with a great album, Slow Hand.
But yes, absolutely, yes. But that thing about of progressing, the next album, and only in retrospect, I guess, that a lot of these things, you just do them, don't you? You do them. I've got these songs here and now, and today I've got this. I'm going to go in the studio. We're going to record stuff. We're going to see how it goes. Put it out, and then it'll either be great or it won't be great. And I think it's a lot of those things, like films and stuff like that. You get a script, you think this will work, so you go and do the film, and then the film isn't very good for some reasons that that nothing to do with you as a performer, but just you keep putting out records, keep touring, because that's what musicians do.
And that's why I admire him. That's why I have, as a fan, I'm a fanboy, because he certainly turns around and says, well, this is what I do. This aloofness, this arrogance, if you like it, you like it. If you don't,
you don't.
At least he's consistent with that attitude right through his career.
And he's continued to do stuff, do plough his own path, do what he wants to do, and kind of, I put him in the same category as Dylan, really, Dylan's nearly 80, for God's sake,
Sure.
Still going out and touring a lot. Eric's got particular hand problems and stuff like that, but this year he's going out touring. He's doing the Albert Hall, he's doing the Budokan.
Yep.
He's still going out and playing, because I'm a musician. What do musicians do? They play.
And Crossroads is booked in for
I was going to say the Crossroads Festival as well. Yeah, that's this year as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Get all your old mates in to come and play and kind of, set that up. plus his other stuff. But I think, that at some point, all those guys in the 60s realised that this wasn't a 3 or 4 year flash in the pan thing. It was a career.
Yeah.
Look at it different, don't you?
He was certainly lucky enough to be part of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
Thousands, yeah.
A little bit like the Stones. The Stones have just released another greatest hits album called Honk.
Well done, then.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. I
But before that, they went back and did that blues album, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was good, you know, that kind of go back to your roots kind of thing. It's like, you know, you just, you know, and they keep going out, and you know, and if dear old Mick is still standing in 10 minutes, you know, they'll be going out again and doing a tours, and you know, because at the end of the day, they are, like it or not, they are career musicians.
So
They have a career in music.
yeah. Well, certainly, and he's what one of Britain's most wealthiest men, isn't he?
Yeah, he's made a lot of money out of it, you know, does very well, and kind of, you know, but he's worked bloody hard, you know, been through the ringer, been through the mill, you know,
As
all of
Jimmy
those
T
things.
says, you know, he's got some classic Ferraris.
See, no, he's having an Eric Clapton Ferraris. Well, I see. That's one up on having an Eric Clapton Fender, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I'll
model.
swap my Eric Clapton Fender for a Ferrari any day.
Yeah, you're on a winner there if you get a straight swap for that. That's for sure. I didn't
Hey,
signature Ferrari.
For the outlines for the series, like you know, we should talk about. I'm just throwing it out there. You know, we can talk about an album through the career. We can talk about an era. We could probably talk about maybe some gear. I certainly would love to talk to you about his gear, because I think the gear through his professional career is very interesting.
It's been an arc, isn't it? It's been an arc.
Yeah.
Yes, from the Les Paul to the 335 to the Fender, you know, which he used now for the last 40 years or something. Yes, that's really interesting, you know, and the changes in what he was doing musically are reflected in the gear he used, stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, that's fine. Yeah, I suppose what the next one is pick your subject.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know, I suppose, you know, maybe I'm just tossing this in as a contribution for us to talk about. You know, Eric Clapton's known as a guitarist, so maybe we could pick maybe our top 10, you know, guitar riffs or guitar songs, and talk about why we've picked that song, maybe.
Yeah. That'd be a good idea. Yes, and then kind of if we can get some stories around them and stuff like that, you know,
sure,
where they were, and you know what you played them on and things as well. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
And I'm sure some of the songs I'll pick will be some of yours, but your discussion will be different. Yeah. So Carl and I obviously had that too when we were talking about a couple of songs. You know, like we'd pick you know, a couple of songs, and you know. Yeah, it was always interesting because Carl would talk about something that I didn't know. And obviously you've got a lot of information there yourself and a lot of experience, so I'm keen to tap into that, Simon.
Yeah, and I think that things like, you know, the Beano album and you know, those things are worthy of you know, of us having a talk about it, because I think they're, you know, the Beano particularly, it's such an important album in the development of the British blues rock scene, you know, all of those things that, you know, that's
one show, maybe two shows, Simon.
Yeah. You know, and then there's Cream, you know, if you're coming at it from a sort of bands thing, you know, there's the sort of the Cream era, you know, how that kind of panned out. So I think there's plenty, isn't there? Plenty there to talk about in many ways.
and we can, well, that's right, because, you know, Jimmy T's talking about how he used the Firebird. That's correct, you know.
He did use a Firebird, yeah.
He's used a hell of a lot of guitars.
He used a Firebird. Cream era.
Yeah. Well, he was using that Firebird also in '69, you know. So he was using that with Blind Faith too.
Yeah. See, yes, and all of that. So I think there's a, you know, and yes, and kind of yes, I think also charting that kind of organic growth thing. You know, about, you know, you start off as a musician at 19. You know, you join a band. You know, you know, if you're lucky, you get to you know the second year or something. You record an album, you record some singles, you run off, you know, and do something else, you know, and all of a sudden you find yourself on a kind of career train that you probably didn't think about when you started.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's that famous thing. Somebody asked Ringo Starr, you know, how do you see this? How do you see this going? He said, "Well, if it lasts another year and I can buy a couple of hairdressing salons, I'll be happy." You know, so you know, even you know, he kind of figured that was in the '60s. You know, that's how it was going to go. You know, and your shelf life was a couple of years, whatever. You know, 2 or 3 years, and I guess they all probably felt like that. You know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That may not be true, but
yeah,
I feel like that's how they felt about it at the beginning. You know, whether they would have, you know, when at 18, 19, whether you can. I don't think they saw it as a career. Do you? I don't think they saw themselves at 75 still playing the Albert Hall kind of thing. You know.
well, you know,
or did they?
Look. If people haven't seen Life in 12 Bars,
yeah.
If you haven't seen that and you want to get a good introduction into Clapton, I highly recommend that, because that's going to talk about a lot of the things that perhaps people have forgotten, but it's going to give you a good insight into into who Eric Clapton is. It's probably one of the best music biography films, Simon, that I've seen, and I've seen a few.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
So you know, yeah. I going back to your question, did Eric Clapton think that he was going to be playing music when he was 75, when he was 18 or 19? I'm going to say yes.
That's interesting. Well, in the grand tradition of the blues players like Muddy Waters and all those other guys that were his heroes, who I guess when he was 18, 19 were in their, I don't know how old Muddy Waters was, but probably in their 40s by then. So in a sense, he had that's interesting. He had a role model of somebody who wasn't 20, who, to say, well, if they've been doing it for 20 years, why can't I?
I think you hit the nail on the head. You've mentioned something that's very, very important, because if you look at Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, they were hanging out with Howling Wolf as well. So they looked at these guys and thought exactly the same thing. We might not be doing this together in this group, but certainly I'm going to continue doing this, because look at these guys.
Yeah, and that is thinking it through. Yes, that's a really interesting point. That maybe because you're in the blues tradition being a different stream to the kind of Beatles pop, kind of, that you see these guys who are 20 years older than you, who are still doing it, and you're going, wait a minute. Whereas I guess in the sort of Beatles pop world, you're saying, oh, well, pop singers last, 2 or 3 years and then they're off, kind of thing. And maybe yes, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Yeah,
but Buddy Guy is still playing.
He's still it's aged 88 or something.
Yes. Yeah, and that's why Eric Clapton will continue to play, because he's not going to stop playing
whilst Buddy Guy plays. He's competitive. By nature competitive, Mr. Clapton, I can see. Yes. Well done.
but yeah, I think I'm glad you mentioned that, and I think that's something that we need to probably keep focusing on, the fact that these guys were exposed to giants at a very early age, and listening to them, and more than that, they're having the opportunity to play with them, Simon.
Yes, and that's right. And going back even, but yes, that's right. And that if you're saying, and we've discussed this, that Eric very serious about the blues, and being a blues player, certainly in the 60s, and wanting, that's what I want to do, and none of your pop frippery, of For Your Love kind of thing. I'm not doing that. That's not the blues. I'm doing the blues, and feeling like that, yes, probably does give you a feeling of that actually, growing up and listening to all, those blues guys, where you learned your stuff from.
So do you want to talk
There
about
is something different.
the Beano album next week? Is that something that we should kick off?
Should we talk? Let's talk about the Beano album next week, because it's the seminal, seminal album. Lots of ripples in the pond from it and stuff. Yeah, I think that would be cool to talk about that. We can attack it head on.
Just to give a bit of a taste to that show. I have a love-hate relationship with that album.
Really? That's interesting. Oh, we can go to. Don't tell me now.
But I look forward to it. It's how long have we been on there for, Simon?
About 50 minutes, something like that.
Okay, so do you want to wrap it up? Is there anything that you want to?
No, I think we've got an agenda. We've got some things something to do next week. Or the
sure,
week after, whenever. Yeah.
Next week's fine, but with me, the same slot.
Yeah, it'd be right. Yeah.
But as usual, if anybody is in the chat or watches the replay that wants to participate in a live show with Simon and I, the invitation is open to anybody. So please keep that in mind. Message Simon, or leave a message here on the channel, and we'll get in touch with you, because it's all about fans sharing their experiences about the music we love so much.
We'll try and get Carlos on, because he's a big Clapton guy. That would be good to get him on.
Yes, certainly. And
timings is tricky with him, because of him being in America.
Yeah. Well, I've been asking him for a while to come on, and but
9 o'clock. Yeah. He's got 5 hours, but so he's like 4 o'clock in the morning now. So he did get up really early or something.
Yeah,
we'd have to go a bit later, so he's a bit more awake. But yeah, I think it's I think that'd be good fun. So Jimmy or people like that, Sonia, if you're in the chat, you wanna come in, why not come and Sonia, come and ask the questions. That's never a bad idea.
Yes, Sonia's saying that she has little knowledge of the history.
Yeah.
So and that's one of the great
and ask the questions.
YouTube.
You don't. The idea is that we all learn stuff from each other. Sonia, come on and ask the questions. That you want to know about. I think that would be really cool, and I don't have any problem with that. We start from positions of ignorance, and we work our way to some sort of knowledge and truth, and that's never a bad thing.
No,
and I think people asking questions about stuff, I think is very useful. It's very easy to assume that one's audience, that you have in-depth knowledge or whatever, lots of things, and maybe lots of people who watch these things don't necessarily have that much knowledge, and therefore the basic questions, the simple questions, are the ones to ask. What are you talking about?
and just even having an opinion is cool.
Completely.
I know a lot of people who don't like the Beano album. That's fine.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
I know a lot of people that don't listen to Clapton past Cream.
Yes. They're always the purists, aren't they?
Yeah. But
yes, Sonia. Yes, same Fender Guru channel, same Fender Guru time.
Yeah.
Living on Fender Guru time. I'm sure that's
but
a
I'll
song
see you
somewhere.
Tomorrow, Simon, because we're going to do some channel testing, aren't we? Tomorrow.
Yes. Let's do some channel testing tomorrow morning. That'd be cool.
Awesome.
Just to see if we can get this so that we can make the technology work for us and stuff like that. I think that would be a good idea.
just to let people know before we sign off, we spent 45 minutes trying to get my some sound going, and I swore
quite a lot. Bad Language Channel. That's our other channel, the Bad Language Channel. Effing and blinding.
I'm sorry.
Morning, Simon.
All right.
That's funny. All right, cool.
Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, and thanks, Sonia, Jimmy T, and who else do we have? Sonia, Jimmy T, John Smith at the top. Mr. Smith, yes. Conspicuous by his absence later on in the program, I noticed. He's obviously too busy selling a house.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to end the broadcast, Simon.
All right, lovely.